Well, hey, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be together on this Tuesday morning. And I have the pleasure of introducing a new friend. And it's very unusual for me to recommend anything to anybody without, it's just really rare. You'll very rarely hear me recommend a book or anything. It's just kind of my philosophy. And I'm excited to introduce you to Scott. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience in less than 2 minutes. Um, I happened to be invited onto a call. I think it was in March, that I'm friends with Leah Carta, and she invited me on. It was actually with her Offspring Nationals. And Scott and Joe were on, and was it both of you or is it just you, Scott? I
It
can't
was
even.
both of us. Yeah, it was both of us.
It was both of you. Yeah. They were both on the call. And to be honest, I had my arms crossed because which many of you probably did, took the little questionnaire and you had to move little things around. And I love taking a personality test because I always score so well. And I took this test and I thought, I don't like the results at all. And so I kind of got on the call with my arms crossed. And I remember you had asked, like, what's your feedback about this quiz? And I had typed in the comment section, well, I want to retake it because I don't like my results. And you had made a comment of it just gives you, there's the way you need to look at it. You don't fail it, but there's opportunities for you to grow. And I thought, wow, well, there are a few of those. And so as he went on and explained kind of what he's going to do today, it made logical sense to me. And then we actually met for a one-on-one. And I'm just going to tell you that after being in the business for 30 years, I do believe that there is sometimes a chasm between where we are and where we want to go. And it can feel a little bit like the Grand Canyon of, the definition of insanity is to continue to do today what I do tomorrow, but expect a different result. However, I had fallen into a trap of a little bit of hopelessness. Like I knew I was repeating similar patterns, but my success had really peaked. And I thought, I know I need to do something different, but I didn't have tools to make the change. And the first thing that I saw with Scott was an incredible amount of insight. Like the intuition in talking with me one on one, I really hadn't seen before. And then his investment into my situation and my circumstances with tools is really been a game changer for me. So, in hopes that this possibly could unlock an idea or just a pattern or just an opportunity for improvement on your end, I know it was super helpful for me. Like, I really feel like I knew there was a problem. Amen. Like, I knew that there was something missing. I just didn't know exactly what it was. And then when I discovered what it was, I was like, it made sense. But I didn't know how to get from point A to point B with that being kind of illuminated. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up and spotlight for everybody. You guys, I would love to introduce to you Scott. Scott, good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and for that vulnerability, because I think that's a big key to what we're doing today is just discussing the importance of just being real and recognizing patterns. And that's really what this is about. So I'm going to be pulling up a presentation on PowerPoint. So if I'm spotlit, can I also share my screen as well? It's got me disabled from that. So if you'll just make me a co-host, I promise I'll turn the reins back over at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. I'm gonna actually I don't know why Tam on yours we can't have co-hosts.
I have no idea, and nobody's been
Okay.
able to figure it out for me. So we have one host.
Okay, so Scott, I'm gonna make you host, and then I may pop on and interrupt you in case there's somebody in the waiting room. But
But
other
you
than
won't.
I can let people in. If
that,
somebody
okay,
pops in the waiting room, I can let them in. I'm
okay, then I'm gonna make you host.
all right. The power.
You got it.
Okay. Thank you. So when I'm the host and when I'm going through this presentation, it's kind of hard for me to see comments. And I know you guys love to put those comments out there. unmute yourself. Feel free to go ahead and just pop in and ask a question. If it really pertains to the subject that we're talking about, I want to make sure that I can answer the questions. And I know we don't have a lot of time, and I want you guys to realize that a lot of times Joe and I, when we travel and put on workshops, we'll teach what I'm going to try and squeeze into an hour. We teach it in about 7. So there's a couple of the areas that I just left out from the assessment. But I will make it available to anybody who wants to schedule a time, just like Tracy did with me, to go over that assessment. If there's more clarity that you're looking for, if you want a better understanding of some things. So don't worry if we miss something, we can still talk about it. So much like Tracy, when I first had an opportunity to meet Joe Rangel, who's my business partner, it was back in 2009. And I had been working for a couple of years as a coach myself. I was actually working as a business coach for small startups in the accounting world, and I would help facilitate their marketing strategies and coach them through that. And one day my boss called me into his office and let me know that he had met Joe and had hired him, and that he was going to come in and he was going to work with the team that I was managing at the time. And Tracy, as quickly as your arms were folded, as you were listening to the presentation, my arms just immediately got folded. My walls went up. I think it's a lot of the being guarded as a habit. We want to protect ourselves. And for whatever reason, if we've had some experiences where we've needed to put some walls up, they went up. And I almost missed out on an opportunity that I, without a doubt, have to say changed my life. The opportunity that I had, I mean, this was a boss who he and I butt heads a lot. And I'm sure that that's probably one of the reasons why he hired a life coach, was because he saw potential, but he knew that he didn't have the ability to do it himself. So he hired somebody from the outside to come in. And Joe wasn't brought in to go fix this guy. Joe was brought in to go help this guy reach his potential. And I'm so grateful to that. It's hard to say that one of the bosses that I despised the most was the one that did the best thing for me that most people have done. Because what it did was it put me on a path, and it gave me an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into understanding the way that we think. And I started teaching those concepts to the accounting students that I was working with. And these guys started having greater success. They started gaining more clients. They started building these businesses that they had really dreamed about building. And so I got to a point in 2014 where I realized I don't think I want to work with accountants for the rest of my life. I want to work with everybody. I want to work with the people that were like me, individuals. And so since 2014, I've had the opportunity to work with Inc. 500 companies. I've worked with small businesses. I've worked with individuals, really just helping them understand what's holding them back from getting to that next level. We all see it. We all want it. We know where we want to be. And like Tracy described, there's that gap. Well, that's what I want to talk about today is what's the gap, and how do we bridge it? What are the things that we can know? So really quickly, this is what I'm planning on going through with you so you can all know. I know we've got about an hour, so little over 45 minutes left. I want to talk about our habits. What habits are supporting us, how they're impacting us. And in the assessment, if you guys took the assessment, thank you for doing that. You're going to have a better understanding on a deeper level of this presentation. If you haven't taken it, you can still take it. But there are 6 areas that we look at. There's 3 of the areas that we call our inner world, and then there's 3 that are our outer world. I've picked 4 of those areas that I'm going to just give you a 3,000-foot view of and explain a couple of things. So those 4 areas are connecting with people. And then we're going to talk about mental creation, which is that first stage when we go to create something. The first thing we do is we think about it. We have ideas about it. We have the thoughts. Then we're going to talk about the physical creation. Now, once we talk about the mental creation, we're going to go into the habits that are either supporting us or creating resistance in the physical work. That's the job. That's the follow-up calls. That's the career chats or the warm chat, whatever you want to chat about. And then the fourth one is we're going to look at our personal fulfillment. We call that our joy. And then share a couple things that I call antidotes to some of these habits, and then wrap up with some final thoughts. Okay. So that's what I'm planning on sharing with you guys today. So here's the question. Y'all know where you want to be. You set these goals, you have these targets, you go out to seminar, you get excited, you walk the exhibition hall, you see the cars, you try on the jackets, and then you come home and we find ourselves people have described it as just running around the mountain, making circles, feeling like I'm not really getting anywhere. So what is it that's challenging us so much to get to the next level? Well, one of my favorite speakers, people to listen to, is Tony Robbins. There's a couple quotes of Tony Robbins in here. I love it. He teaches a lot of what we teach. But this quote right here, this kind of brings it right to the point. The difference between the peak performance that we see and we set as a goal, and he calls it poor performance. And I don't want you to view where you're at and what you're doing as poor performance, but it's not where you want to be. So the difference between those two things, it's not intelligence, it's not ability. You all have the same scripts. You all sell the same product. You all have the exact same opportunities. Most often, it's the state that your mind and body is in. And I've got this quote that I've been telling people this since about 2010. And when I realized how true this is, the story you tell is the life you live, it really underlines the importance of what Tony Robbins is saying here. It breaks it down in a simpler form. The state that your mind is in, that's the thoughts that you have. That's the things that you're telling yourself. Now, neuroscience is where we get this statistic from. Neuroscience is probably one of the greatest discoveries that we've had over the last couple of decades. Neuroscience is the study of our brain and the way that we think. And this statistic that 95% of our thoughts, by the time we're 35 years old, 95% of the thoughts you have are just automatic. They're just there. 5% of our thoughts are conscious, deliberate thoughts. I read something last night as I was putting the final touches on this. I was just kind of going into, I wanted to know how many thoughts do we really have? I've heard from 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. We can't really agree on what the number of thoughts is, but they do agree on the same thing, that 95% of whatever the number of thoughts you're having are being driven by habit. Our thoughts lead to choices. Those choices lead to actions and behaviors. They lead to the same experiences. They give us the same feelings and we get the same results. And we wonder, how come I keep getting a headache when I'm banging my head on this wall expecting a different result? If we reverse engineer it, it goes back to understanding the importance of flipping the script here. Instead of your thoughts being unconscious, 5% conscious thoughts, 95% subconscious. What if it was the other way around? What if more of our thoughts were intentional and deliberate thoughts? And I'm going to give you an exercise to do to really understand what that feels like. Because if we don't, what happens is we become predictable. We wake up and we just start being run by a program. Joe Dispenza breaks it down. Joe Dispenza is one of my favorite authors as well. He's a neuroscientist, and he says, look, we all wake up, and as soon as we wake up and that awareness comes to us, the program starts running. We reach over, we grab our phone, we check our phone, we get out of bed on the same side of the bed, we go get coffee, we run to the bathroom, we jump in the shower, we hop out of the shower, we put on our makeup, we get dressed, and boom, we're just running. So the objective is to try to break up this program of this subconscious brain. Now, what you're seeing is an image of Tony Robbins, the grandfather of life coaching. And he's speaking to an artificial intelligence. This is a robot, ladies. Her name is Sophia, and she is the first citizen of any country in the world. She's a citizen of Saudi Arabia. And Sophia goes around to the trade shows. You know, I could see her being at seminar one day, maybe. And she's a draw because she's just so intelligent. She's just so aware. So Tony Robbins got a chance to interview her. And as he was interviewing her, he asked her a question. And if you watch the video, he kind of asks it in jest. But the question he asked her was, Sophia, how do we get robots to feel more like humans? You know, he's kind of bragging up how humans, you know, have a little bit of an advantage over robots, and they don't get to feel emotion. So how do we get robots to feel more like humans? And her answer, when I heard it, it dropped my jaw. And I realized, oh my gosh, she's talking about exactly what I talk about on a daily basis. This is Sophia, the AI, the robot's response when asked, how do we make robots feel more human? She said, I know humans feel that they have free will, right? Would you agree? We have free will. We get to make choices. But my observations tell me so much behavior is automatic. I'm not sure humans or robots are too terribly different. Now let that sink in, ladies. We're being called out as robots by a robot. How do we bridge this gap? This gap that Tracy brought up, disrupting this program. So we aren't operating like robots that have surrendered free will to a group of habits. Now, I said I was going to give you an example to understand the difference between a conscious thought and a subconscious thought. So I want everybody to do this. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. Hopefully you're not driving, but if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But everybody else, what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes when I tell you to. And I want you to say to yourself 5 times in your mind, I'm ready to be at the next level in my business. So close your eyes. Repeat that to yourself 5 times. Did you hear it? Can you hear it? That's you. That is conscious, intentional you thinking a thought. Now, while you were doing that, did any other thought pop into your mind? Yeah, but I've been saying this for years. Did any of those thoughts pop in? Because that's the 95%. That's the habit. That's the automatic response. The one that was sitting there intentionally with your eyes closed saying, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready. That's us. We're dealing with this subconscious brain and the conscious mind. And what I've learned as a coach over the last 18 years is that what makes the struggle difficult is that the subconscious mind, with its patterns and repetitious behaviors and the same thoughts, the doubts, the fears, the walls, it's not working in harmony. It's actually working against our conscious mind. Our job is to realize that not all those thoughts are us. They're neurons that are firing. They're just habits. Our job is to learn to observe the thoughts, to be able to disrupt that program, to be more intentional and more deliberate. Now, I told you in 2014, I decided I wanted to work with more people. I didn't want to just work with accountants. And so what I really wanted was to work with Joe, because Joe had access to this amazing tool, this report that allows us to be able to understand why we're thinking the thoughts that we're thinking. It's called the Habit Finder Assessment. Now, we get this from the Ogmandino Leadership Institute. We don't work for them, but they actually had their retreat last weekend, and Joe went up to it. And he said that the president of the Ogmandino Institute announced that 2evolve Coaching, we have worked with more Habit Finder programs than all of the other Habit Finder coaches combined. This is a tool that we embrace because we understand that you're not your thoughts. We understand that our thoughts are driven by habits. And so we want to be able to get right down to the nitty-gritty to start changing those thoughts. So where we get this from, where the Habit Finder gets the program, it's based off of the Hartman Value Profile. It's been around since the 1940s. And what it does is it allows us to capture your thinking patterns. The science that's behind this assessment, I'm going to get a little technical for a second, then we'll walk away from that, but it's all about axiology. That's how we value stuff. We value things based on 3 different forms of measurement. There's intrinsic value, there's extrinsic value, and there's systemic value. Most of the assessments that are out there, a large majority of the assessments that are out there, the science that they use is inductive, meaning they're trying to induce a diagnosis of you. And I always use the example of just the most basic inductive assessment out there. Which Disney princess are you? Okay. You want to answer a bunch of questions and we're going to tell you which Disney princess you are. But the problem with those type of assessments are, if you know the result that you're looking for, you can cheat the assessment. Same thing with like the 5 love languages. If you're a guy and you want your love language to be physical touch, you can cheat that assessment. You know how to answer those questions. Our assessment is really hard to cheat. Think back as you guys were dragging and dropping those 2 groups of 18, did you know which order they were supposed to go in? Believe it or not, there was a mathematical order. But what they're doing is they're just showing us those redundant, automatic, unconscious thoughts that are acquired through our repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, your body knows how to do it better than your mind. And we surrender our free will to this program. So in this assessment, it just gives us the ability, like Tracy said, to have conversations about this stuff. This isn't to weaponize against you. It's not to go, oh my gosh, look at all the red, look at the orange. I'm awful. This is not an assessment of you. This is an assessment of your habits, and you're not your habits. Okay. So the concept is, if we can measure, we can manage it, then we can have conversations about it, and we can expect to start seeing better results. So the way that the report looks, as you're looking at it, what you're going to notice on the left side is the topic. Okay. So that's the area that we're measuring. Then we're going to see where the risk is. If there's a supportive habit, it's going to be all green. But if it's yellow or orange or even in the red, all that's doing is measuring risks. And we're looking at 2 different parts of your world. Your inner world is the connection with people and the physical work and structure. Sorry, that's the outer world. The inner world is mental creation. That's how you visualize. It's about your joy and it's about your self-worth. Okay. So we're measuring risk. Now, when you were ranking those things, there was an order for where they were supposed to be ranked based on axiology, the science of how we value things. If you got it right where it was supposed to be, or if it was 1 or 2 above or below, it's going to show up as green, meaning, hey, there's no risk. This is a very supportive habit. This is actually a strength. Okay. If you got it 3 to 4 from where it was supposed to be, it's going to show up in yellow. That, hey, sometimes this is getting in the way. This is creating resistance for you. If it's 5 to 6 from where it was supposed to be, it's going to be a moderate risk. It's going to be orange. And if it's 7 or more from where it was supposed to be, okay, this is a big risk. It's really holding you back. It doesn't mean you're not having success. It doesn't mean you're not accomplishing things. What it means is it's taking more effort and more energy to get to the place that you're at right now. Now, I love to use this analogy. A couple of years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I coached the high school swim team coach up at one of the big high schools here in Utah. And we would meet in his office, which was right in the swimming pool. And while we would have our coaching sessions, his swimmers would be doing laps in this big Olympic-sized swimming pool, getting ready for competitions. And I don't know if there's any swimmers in this group, but I noticed that the swimmers were wearing these harnesses that had these little parachutes at the end. And I said, so tell me what that's about. And he said, well, that's doing a couple of things. The first thing it's doing is it's helping them to correct their form because it's creating a drag in the water so they can see where their form is at. But it's helping them strengthen their muscles because they're doing the work that they would do in a competition. They're working as hard as they can to get up and back across that pool as quickly as possible. But then when they get in the water during the competitions, they take those harnesses off and they're able to cut through the water even faster because they're used to doing it with the resistance. And I'm always looking for metaphors. You know, as a coach, I work with a lot of metaphors. And I thought, what a beautiful metaphor to help people understand what these habits are doing. They're a lot like wearing these parachutes. We're doing the work, but it's just taking a lot of effort to stay where we're at and to kind of keep our heads above water. And a lot of the times it's because we've got these habits that are creating the resistance. Now, I would say the size of the parachute that's on this person right here, these group of swimmers, that's probably a low to moderate risk. If you've got red in any of those areas, your parachute probably looks a little bit more like this. You guys remember these things from elementary school? This is what I think some of those high risk habits are doing to us is they're creating just this enormous drag and it's exhausting and it's wearing us out. So that's what I want to go into. Let's look at the assessment. If you've got it printed, I want you to pull open, go to the fourth page, which is connection. And I want to talk about how our connection with people affects us because we all know what Mary Kay Ash said about our business. It is a result of personal one-on-one relationships with other people. And sometimes these habits that we have in relation to people are just getting in the way. They get in the way as consultants, as directors, in all leadership positions. If we're not aware of them and they're just operating us, it's what's keeping us from getting where we want to go. So what I want to talk about is the first bar. You can see the topic is individuality. Okay. So what we're measuring here is just our ability to see people beyond any judgment, beyond what we might have as far as an agenda with them, what we want from them. It's just being able to empathetically recognize a human being and their self-worth. Now, if you've got the bar that's going to the left, I want to help you understand what that means. That means when you were ranking the topic that represented an individual, you ranked it lower than where it was supposed to be on that report. If it goes to the right side of the assessment, that means you ranked it higher, so you've overvalued it. So if you're going to the left at all, it just means you've undervalued, because of this habit of thinking, just the ability to recognize individuals for being the most valuable thing on the planet. And it's not an intentional thing that you've done. It's usually a wound from trauma in your past. It's usually something that came from trust. Is we got a little guarded, and it might cause us to be just a little guarded when we engage with other people, and we protect ourselves, and it stops us from being vulnerable. And vulnerability is a really important skill when it comes to being able to connect with people. If we've got this habit, it might cause us to have a little bit more of a wall up when we're talking to people and fail to really listen to some of those intuitive feelings that we're having. It's that voice in your head that says, well, don't share too much. We don't want them to know this about us. We'll talk about vulnerability here in a second. But if you see that on there, this isn't something to beat yourself up with. Just like Tracy said, this is an opportunity to go, okay, where's the resistance? Is this really affecting my business at all? And what would my business look like if this habit was more in the realm of being empathetic with people? The next one of being able to be observant when it comes to appearances and abilities. And if we see the measurement going over to the left with indifferent, generally what happens with this habit, how this is showing up, is that
You call me out?
it makes us a little bit preoccupied
Oh no,
when
I
we're
thought maybe, I did because
Oh, wait, guys, someone's not muted. So if you guys could just mute your mics, that would be great. Go ahead, Scott.
That's okay. It happens. It causes us to be a little bit preoccupied when we're talking to other people. The best way to describe that is we're having conversations with somebody, they're sharing things with us, and we're listening to respond. And that happens a lot. Probably one of the number one problems in most relationships is this: I'm listening to you, but I'm really just listening to give a response back to what you're saying. And, you know, I think one of the best ways to describe this, I was having a coaching session with the director a couple of weeks ago, and she was out, she was doing some warm chat, and she was describing an interaction she had with somebody who she was really excited to talk to. When she started to speak to her, the lady just really quickly said, "Oh, yeah. I was involved in Mary Kay a long time ago. I had a horrible experience. So I'm not interested. Thank you." And the director's response to that was, "Well, I love Mary Kay, and if you ever want to learn more about it, I'd love to tell you. Have a great day. Be blessed," and went along her way. And I said, "Well, let's step back for a second here. Was that being a little indifferent to their situation? What would have happened if you'd have said, instead of, well, my situation, my experience has been great, being preoccupied on what your experience is like and not stepping into their world and just saying, tell me about it. I would love to hear what that experience was like for you." Can you see how that habit blocked a connection, or at least a potential opportunity for a connection with that person? And I just want you to think about your own interactions with people and just ask yourself, is this something that is an opportunity for me to work on, to really be able to step into their world rather than try to move past it as a way to connect on a deeper level? Now, I want to go down to the painful challenges. That's the very last bar of measurement in connecting with people. Most assessments that I see, I went through and I was looking through some of the assessments because I wanted to see if anybody had the undervalue of preoccupied when it came to compassion and painful challenges. That's the last bar that we're looking at. But preoccupied, what that means, if you do have it, is that, again, we're a little focused on our own challenges that we've been through. You've got a thorn in your heel. Well, I have a broken ankle. It keeps us from really being able to step into that person's world. And a lot of these habits, like I said earlier, especially when it comes to connecting with people, these are just a result of that experience, or those experiences that we had. It's our inner child that's still wearing some of this armor that's trying to protect us from being hurt like we may have been in our past. And I'd love to tell people this, that these habits that we've developed, you didn't set out intentionally to form these habits. These are artifacts of the experiences that you've had. And so it's very safe to say it's not your fault if you've developed these habits. But at some point, when you realize that these might be what are slowing you down, we can make a choice to say, I don't want these habits to govern me anymore. I'm going to take responsibility and I want to make these changes in order to get to that next level, bridge the gap and get away from just this drag that it's creating in my business. Now, I said I wanted to touch on vulnerability because I bring it up with clients and I say, tell me what it means to be vulnerable to you. And generally, some people see it as being a form of weakness, but in the sense that vulnerability leads to us being able to be trusted and people can relate to us. And if they can relate to us, they'll believe more of what we share with them. And that leads to sellability. So if there's opportunity for you, if you're aware of it, that maybe some of those walls are up that are keeping me from really connecting because I'm a little over focused or a little guarded, and you want to get to the next level, this is just the time to go, all right, I'd love to make those changes. I had a session with a group that I was working with, and there was a director, and we were talking about being vulnerable, and it was a very safe form of being vulnerable. We talked about, you know, how often we're told by our customers or by the new team members that, oh my gosh, you are an answer to our prayers, to my prayers. I've been praying for something. I just didn't know what it was. Have anybody ever had somebody say that to them when either selling them something or bringing them into the pink bubble? And I said, I think it's important for us to let our people know that they're also a manifestation of our prayers. We pray for these people to come into our life. And this director said, Scott, I just can't do that. I can't do it. And I don't understand why. And I've talked to so many people about it, and I don't know what it is. And I said, I think I know. Are you open to perspective? And she said, sure, what? And when I pulled up the assessment, I said, look, you're guarded. You don't want people to know that you're praying for this because in your mind, that comes through as a sign of weakness. And she cried and she said, nobody has said that to me, but you're absolutely right. That's what this is. So think about just those little pivots that we can make that might allow us, if you can start to notice it, start to pay attention to those thoughts, observe those thoughts when you're speaking to people and connecting with people. Okay. All right. Let's move into one of my favorite. I love manifestation. I love that we can create things with our thoughts. So let's look at mental creation. And this is one that when we do the one-on-one debriefs, we can go a lot deeper into it. So I'm going to go really surface level here, but I want to start with that first measurement of what's your primary motivation. When you wake up in the morning, when you look at your schedule, when you think about your day, what's the language? The words that we use, ladies, they have a hypnotic energy. And a lot of people are using language that just is that giant parachute that slows them down. And this bar is one of those, the best ways to describe it. So if you see your measurement going to the left side towards obligation, I'm willing to bet there's a lot of I need to, I have to, I should. Ladies, we should all over ourselves. Pay attention to yourself. If you've got a partner, get your partner to pay attention. They'll love this. Tell them, I need your help catching how many times I say I need to on a daily basis. If that's the primary motivation, I need to, I have to, I should, ask yourself, how do you feel when somebody tells you you have to do something? Most people, and we'll see this in structure, which we're not reviewing today, but most people will have a resistance to rules and authority. And yes, that includes self-imposed rules and authority. So if you're constantly saying, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do my booking calls, I need to do my follow-up calls, I need to go check my facial boxes, I should probably do some warm chat. Right there, you're creating resistance. Because think about it. When you say I have to, I need to, I should, most people they just feel tired. That's the way that it starts to manifest. is it's exhausting. So because they feel tired, they rebel. They choose not to do the things. And then because they've been rebelling and they haven't been doing the things, they start to entertain thoughts of quitting. You know what? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just go back to work. Maybe I should give up on this dream, whatever it is. But then we get a call. We get a call from our leader, and they fill us with a little bit of motivation, and we feel guilty. And so we recommit. But if we don't change that language of I have to, or I must, or I should, or they expect me to, we're just at the back of the top of the obligation cycle. And it's just a habit. So look at what happens when we catch the language and we pivot. And instead of it being obligation, we choose to be self-directed. That's the ideal habit. That's the supportive habit, is being self-directed. Remembering our why. I'm choosing to. I want to. If we are reminding ourselves that no, nobody's got a gun to my head. I want this business. I want this success. Well, now we've got the right energy. There's a liberation of energy, actually. And instead of being tired, we've got the energy to go out and embrace doing the things that our leaders are telling us will help us. We embrace those things and we're taking action. There's no thoughts of quitting. We're doing the work, all because of this energy that came from reminding ourselves that we want this. So there's freedom from guilt, because I'm willing to bet if you're doing the things your leaders are telling you with this energy, you're having success. You're seeing the actual results. Ladies, this system works. Mary Kay, it works. It's the fear and the doubt that come from these habitual thoughts that create that resistance, that make us question it. But if we believe it, and if we do the work with the right energy, you know you're going to see the results. You've probably seen it in the past, but what happens? We get comfortable, so we stop doing the things and we go back to that old place. And we go, see, it keeps happening every time. Well, it's because we're not making these committed choices to make these permanent changes. So that's just one of the areas that I wanted to talk about. The next one is that openness to advice. If you've got the measurement going over to stuck, it doesn't mean you're not coachable. It doesn't mean that you're not open to advice. I know that because you guys are here. You're open to advice. Your leader said, hey, join this call. Listen to this guy. Listen to him talk about habits. You are open. But if we see that measurement over in stuck, I'm willing to bet it's that narrative that's saying to you in your mind, this is never going to change. You're too old. You can't make this change. And to that, I say, I don't know if you guys know who Ann Sherman is. I'm willing to bet you do. But Ann Sherman is the oldest client that I've ever worked with, and she's in this process. She's not too old. She recognizes that. We're never too old to become aware of an unhealthy habit and just make a change. Okay. The next one that we're going to look at is physical creation. So this would be number 4 in the assessment, page 4. This is basically the work. The first one, the last one that we looked at was the mental creation. So that's the first plane. Now this is the physical plane of creation. And what I want to focus on is that top bar of the primary motivation. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I have so far to go, I'm nowhere even close, August is almost over, we're feeling depleted, we're feeling empty, the majority of the time that that's happening is because we're focused on the expectation. We're focused more on the prize, the goal, what we're working towards, than on why we're doing this in the first place. You know, you your leaders talk about understanding what your why is. And as a coach, when I'm working with somebody who has this measurement that's out of balance, it's just an indicator that here's an opportunity for us to start the day being focused on intentionally serving other women. Like really fully understanding what Mary Kay Ash was talking about when she said that business is about enriching other women's lives, creating a business for women to be as successful as they want to be. We often get caught up being attached to expectations. Attachment is a poison of the mind. Attachment is one of those things that we're giving the control of how we feel to something that's outside of us, rather than just being focused on serving people, loving people, believing, being excited, knowing that if we choose to and we get to, and if we do the work with belief, there are going to be people out there because they're praying for us, and we'll find them. Okay. We're gonna wrap up with personal fulfillment. And we've got just enough time to get through this one. Like I said at the beginning of this call, we're doing kind of a surface level. But if there's been something that really stuck out to you, something that I mentioned, one of your measurements that was in alignment with what we were talking about, we can go deeper. I'm more than happy to meet with anybody that wants to, and we can go into the full thing. But I want to wrap up on joy because, I mean, it's why we're here. We're here to have joy. You know, the scriptures tell us, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances. Very commonly, this is one of those metrics, this area of personal fulfillment where I see a lot of opportunity because there's a lot of negative self-talk that goes on. There's a lot of beating ourselves up because of some of these other cousin habits that we've got that are kind of connected to each other. But if you see the life management, I want to talk about that one really quickly. If you see the aimless or the frantic, there's a reason that that's happening. There's a reason that we're feeling the stress and not the joy in our lives. And I want you to just look at these symptoms. And there's a reason that people feel these symptoms: fatigue, problems with problem solving, decreasing efficiency, social alienation, decreasing work satisfaction, error rates, loss of time, stress, short-term memory loss, mental burnout, and anxiety and depression. Anybody want to guess what habit this is? Some people would say crystal meth, cocaine. What is it?
Multitasking.
Who said that?
Me, Trish.
Trish, you nailed it. Look
No
at
way.
that life management, the aimlessness, the frantic, those are all symptoms of multitasking.
That's crazy.
You guys, there is no positive information about a benefit to multitasking on the internet. It is a myth. It is an outdated paradigm. You know, we used to take pride in interviews and they'd be like, well, how are you at multitasking? And be like, oh, really good. No, I'm just effectively screwing two things up at the same time. It lowers your IQ by 10 points if you're checking an email while performing another creative task. Have you ever tried to write an email while talking to somebody? It's horrible. You're not doing it. So if you're multitasking, if you're feeling frantic, if you're feeling aimless in your business, in your life, the antidote, Mary Kay's been telling you guys to do this for years, and I bet probably 50% of you don't do it. You know what it is? You want to go 2 for 2, Trish? What's the antidote to multitasking in your business?
Stay focused.
6 most important things list.
Boom. It's right there. I mean, there's a reason that Ivy Lee taught it to Charles Schwab. There's a reason that Mary Kay has been teaching you guys to do it. It reduces stress. It takes that away. If you want to experience more joy, these are the antidotes, okay? If you're feeling discouraged, what are you focusing on? Are you allowing those thoughts to pull you? If this is a measurement that you've got, the antidote is gratitude. What's working? Instead of looking to the top of the mountain, looking at the summit, looking at where you want to be, each of you turn around, look at where you're at. I would be willing to bet most of you are in a place that 5 years ago you were praying to get to. And you're here, but you're not appreciating it. Gratitude is extremely underrated. I mean, we throw that word around, we hear it, but I don't think people really understand the value that living a life of gratitude brings. It was one of the antidotes that allowed me to go from victim to victor in a really short amount of time. Being somebody that I was making a vision board in 2012, and I was looking at it going, there's a lot of cool stuff on there. There's a lot of great experiences on there, a lot of cool trips, but there's really nothing about me. What can I put on there to reflect growth in me? And I found a magazine article flying home from a trip, and it just said, learn to live a life of gratitude. And I realized I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I have manners, I appreciate things, but I didn't really know what that meant to live a life of gratitude. And I stumbled into a journey and I found it, and it's a game changer. So gratitude and having a purpose, I can sum it up with this acronym. Elvis had TCB, taking care of business. Well, this year I've been focusing on this with my clients. GCB, gratitude, daily, consistency. That's the new focus, and belief. If we are practicing gratitude consistently, it will amplify our belief in how amazing this company is, and how amazing our customers are, and how amazing our team members are, the people that we get to work with. But those habits, they want to pull us to be focused on the wrong things. And so I've found that this is such a simple, easy thing that we can do it if we remember. If we're focusing on gratitude every day, and I'm not just saying make a list. Why? Why are you grateful for those things? You guys, the why is the most important part when it comes to gratitude, because the why affects the vibration. The why is the emotional part to it. We are beings of energy, and we put out a frequency. You feel it. You meet people and go, oh my gosh, I love their energy. You describe it in those words, but then we don't realize that we have that energy too. And it's our habits that drive our thoughts that affect our energy. So having gratitude raises that vibration. If you're consistently working in your business, if you work your business not like a hobby, but if you actually own it like a business owner, and I know that there's people in this call that are going, I don't see it as a business. Okay, change that. That's your opportunity. Start to see this as a business and consistently work in that business every day. You don't need to work 8 hours a day to be successful in Mary Kay. I mean, you might be amazingly successful, but you don't need to. That's the beauty of this business. You can be as successful as you want to be. But by doing those things, it just amplifies your ability to believe. And it's that belief that makes the biggest difference in all of this. Okay. I mean, normally this is where I would say, here, let me read a testimonial. This is a director that I'm working with. This is a new I mean, this was just shared with me last week. But Tracy, I think, did even better, with what she shared. And, we're still at the beginning of the process with Tracy, but it's amazing when we take ownership of where we're at and why we're there. And if you have that desire to shift and want to go deeper, I can help you with that. Reach out. Let's go into the assessment. Let's look a little bit more and uncover those things that are a little bit more connected to you. So wrapping it up, you're not your habits. You're not your thoughts. Okay. They're what's creating the resistance. They're the result of our past. We're not there anymore. We can take those walls down. We can take that armor off if we can put the light on it. Carl Jung's quote that you've seen today, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. Well, if you want to dive deeper, especially, we didn't even look at structure or self-worth, two massively important areas in the assessment, highly intrinsic, very personal. There's my number right there. In fact, I'll just put it up here. Shoot me a text. Let's talk. I would be happy to just go over the assessment with you if you think that you might want to engage in coaching. Joe and I say all the time, we want to work with people that want to work with us. We're not pushy. So don't feel that if you reach out to me, I'm going to hound you. That's not the way that this works. But we just know that you're so much more than your thoughts. And you all have the potential to be greater. Sometimes we're the ones that are in the way, though. And this is why that happens. So thank you.
Scott,
Thank you.
I want to recap a couple things.
Please do.
And then if you've got 5 minutes in case there's any questions, but
I'm here.
okay. You guys, the word tells us that we can take every thought captive. I mean, that's a biblical principle that we live our life by. However, I didn't really know what that meant other than stop the thought, like try to stop the thought. Well, sometimes that 95% is running the show and the 5% is going, okay, I can take every thought captive. What was the thought and how does that work? And so I think what I found was so helpful with working with Scott was just having somebody that I can process my thinking through, and him asking like, hey, if I saw something that I felt like I'm seeing something, are you open to me sharing it? Which I'm like, at this point, I'm an open book. Like I want to change the patterns that have by probably past trauma. And just like Scott was saying, that I have put in place for self-perseverance, but in fact has put walls up. And so one, I think that concept, that biblical principle of we can take every thought captive is, we'd all say yes and amen. I just didn't necessarily have the tools to be able to do that. And so this is what I find that's so helpful. And then just that reminder that so much of what we do is so automatic. I was talking to my group of leaders yesterday, and I was talking about what do we do? And I know Trish gave me her example of what do we do every single day that we don't ever have to think about. That's our subconscious ruling our world. Like it is in everything that we do. And therefore, for me, I realize that's why I'm repeating patterns, is because I'm working in that, where awareness comes from, for me, awareness has come from seeing some of the results on this habit finder. And I love the fact that we are not our thoughts, because the majority of the time my thoughts are not serving me well, right? There's not a time I walk by the mirror and I'm like, girl, like that's not the thought that's happening.
The statistic that I read last night with neuroscience is, out of those 95% of our thoughts that are subconscious, 75% of our thoughts are negative.
Yeah, and I would concur. But here's the deal. I love that Pam Shaw always says you can start a diet in the middle of a bag of potato chips. Like we can start to change. But I've always added, you got to realize your hand is in the bag. Like sometimes we don't even stop to think about what it is we're thinking about because we're so busy. And as leaders, we're in motion, we're in all of that. But taking the time to stop, look, contemplate, process, and then create healthy change is where I feel like my hope quotient, like I haven't even really changed yet. But what has changed for me is my hope quotient of I was feeling a little hopeless, and now I'm like, there is a process I could be working on. With all that said, I want to
That's a change. I'm going to acknowledge that's a shift. That's a shift in thinking. That's opening it up. That right there is a change.
hashtag shift happens.
Shift happens. I love it.
Anybody have any questions for Scott before we let him go?
Yeah.
I don't have any
they-
questions. I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thanks for being on. I just, when you said like habits will direct your life and you'll call it fate right at the end there, it's, that's amazing. I mean, and being grateful for where you are today.
Well, thank
And,
you. I appreciate it. We love
yes.
what we get to do. We love Joe and I have worked in Mary Kay for 20 combined years. We love you guys. We know the potential that you all have. We see it. You should see it.
All right. Anything else?
Thank
before
you
we-
so much. That was awesome.
There's
And
Tammy.
we have it recorded, so we'll get it out to each of you and you can get to your people that were interested but not able to get on.
Again, feel free to reach out if you need my number.
you.
Didn't get it. Tracy can share it with you. But just would love to chat with anybody who wants to go deeper.
Yeah, and I can definitely concur. He's zero pressure. Absolutely. And which is the only reason I would even allow this opportunity. So,
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for your trust.
all right. God bless you guys. Have a great day.
See you guys.
Thank you.